Now on the night Jesus was born came 3 wise men, but guiding those 3 wise men, within them was the same angel that appeared before Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, as well as Moses, Daniel, Joseph and Mary, and Aaron, he who was, is, and has yet to be, the triune angels of creation. That is who the wise men really were. For you'll notice that after that there was no mention of the triune or of God appearing as the depiction again. Upon Jesus' death we were separated and returned to our respective eras by Gabriel. However, along the way as we were traveling through the wormhole of time, we were bombarded and knocked off course, landing in the year 1594 AD. Vladimir Tepes, the rightful heir to the throne of Moldova, had just returned from his successful campaign to drive back the invading Turkish army with a handful of townsfolk. He ambushed 200 soldiers that were a scouting party for the 1,500-man army that was crossing the borders to invade his land. He captured many of them alive and drove pikes through them, avoiding major organs, and left them alive along the canyon walls leading towards his kingdom. When the Turkish army arrived and could hear nothing but the wailing moans of their dying comrades, they became spooked and returned home, refusing to spend a single night listening to that sound. Vladimir had rushed home, for he had heard news that a Turkish spy had slipped into town and meant to kill his wife and son. By the time he arrived it was too late. The rabbi had been threatened and paid to convince him that they had committed suicide, but Vladimir already knew the truth they refused to admit. That is the point where we literally came crashing in through the center of the cross that was in the chapel of his castle along the right side of the front of his castle grounds. I have not figured out how this occurred exactly yet, but somehow Vladimir was able to see through the tunnel and into the era we came from, with Jesus still hanging there upon the cross. Now Hebrew accounts state that upon Christ's death the angel Ariel came and dipped the chalice of the Holy Grail in the blood of Christ and thus empowered the cup to grant immortality. But I think what happened was Vladimir saw Jesus at the crucifixion and, knowing the tale of the resurrection, figured if he dipped the communion cup in his era into the blood of Jesus, then he would be given the power of immortality to rise from the dead just as Jesus had, and thus was a divine sign from God to go forth and seek vengeance for his family's death.
In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti. It is over. The evil is vanquished. This crypt must remain forever sealed.
To right a wrong committed by this spy, who later turned out to be his own brother, but that comes later. He went on a murderous rampage imbued with the power I also had given him, which was the fire of the wrath of God that was used during the time of the Ark of the Covenant. But after he went mad in his lust for vengeance, it was time to put a stop to him, so I withdrew the fire of God's wrath. With his dark power taken from him, the people of the town rose up against him, and the grandmother of one of his last victims saw her granddaughter's body on a pike in front of his castle gate. She erupted in fury and anger. But oh, the deceit a woman is capable of in grief. She held herself together and gave them instruction on how to stop a creature like this. She called him Nosferatu and said in her homeland, to stop these fiends who have returned from the grave was to stuff their mouths with gall, cut off their head, cut out their heart and place it in a jar of consecrated holy water, bury the head on sanctified ground, sew the eyes shut and burn the corpse remains.
It's Freddy! You've got a secret that you wanna keep. You know I'll hunt you when you fall asleep. evil within. Oh, so all the children sing. 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. 3, 4, better lock your door. 5, 6, grab your crucifix. For the evil I inflict. 7, 8, gotta stay up late. 9, 10, never sleep again. Eyes closed, you'll drift away. In dreamland you will stay.
Personally, I don't think she had ever encountered anything like what she described. I think it was all done out of revenge for her granddaughter, but that's how it went. The heart of Vladimir Tepes was sent to Rosslyn Chapel to the Templars to keep in their renowned archive of mystical artifacts they guarded, but they refused to take it in, so it was instead taken to a small abbey in the town of Rosslyn and sealed behind a brick wall in the basement and entitled the Heart of Darkness. Once our obligations to Vladimir were concluded, we continued back into the wormhole and into time, but again we were sideswiped, only this time we saw who it was, Satan, and all three of us came spilling out into the year 1784 AD in the French countryside, right in the middle of the French Revolution.
Before the gods of Olympus, a great battle was waged. The wrath of the primordials. The very beings who forged the earth, raged out of control for an eternity. And from this rage, this madness of war, the Furies were brought forth. Neither Titan nor God, mortal nor shade, the Furies were bound to no one.
Since the end of the Great War, bloodlust and power raged within Zeus. His desire to rule over mortals was intolerable to us. The war between the Titans and the Olympians filled the landscape of the mortal world. It was a war that we knew the Titans must win. If we lost, it would mean an end to the golden age of the Titan rule. Peace and prosperity for mankind would be no more.
Childhood in ancient Sparta was a brutal existence. Children deemed fit and strong were trained to be warriors, the protectors of Sparta. The weaker children were caged, sent to the mountains to fend for themselves. They were not expected to survive. Whoever controlled the marked warrior controlled the fate of Olympus.
Ikari! Patronoles in Sparta Fera Ivan Kali.
Ameorities.
Itera! Aeneas and Membralis.
Kratos! Help! Kratos!
Forgive me.
Help!
Deimos.
Kratos! Deimos! Where are you? Come home, my sons!
On an ill-fated day, Deimos was taken under the eyes of his brother Kratos, the brother who had vowed to always protect him. It was I who cared for him. It was I who kept him safe. I nurtured his desire to free his brothers and sisters from Kronos. But my foolish act of compassion would haunt the Titans forever. For in sparing Zeus, we allowed him to return to us with vengeance in his heart. He betrayed all of the Titans for the sins of just one. The sins of his father, Kronos.
Listen for them, the children of the night. What music they make.
The battle continued despite my capture. Then Zeus created a powerful weapon to end the Great War. A weapon forged from the heavens and the earth. The Blade of Olympus.
I banish you to the darkest pits of Tartarus!
It all began when Zeus triumphed over the Titans in the Great War. Zeus understood that the evils born from that battle, if left free, would destroy the world of man and gods. To contain these evils, Zeus commissioned Hephaestus to build a vessel strong enough to hold them. Fear, greed, hate. He locked them all away in the box in hopes that they would never again infect his reign. When Zeus gathered all the evils and placed them in the box, I dreaded what would happen if it was opened again. And so, I summoned the most powerful weapon in the world, and I placed it in the box.
After the Great War with the Titans, the Oracle had foretold the demise of the Olympian gods and the destruction of Olympus. She saw that it would be brought about not by the hands of the Titans, who thirsted for revenge, but by the hands of a mortal, a marked warrior. When Zeus came to power, he found he had little to fear from the sisters. The Furies sought retribution only for those whom they deemed guilty. The first of these traitors was Aegean the Hecatoncheires. When the brute pledged a blood oath to Zeus, only to later betray the king of the gods, the Furies were quick to take action. The sisters relentlessly hunted Aegean, and upon capturing the creature, tortured him without mercy. For the Furies believed death was too kind for this oath-breaker. Aegean the Hecatoncheires became an example to all.
Spartan, witness the end.
Darkness descends upon the land to wrap the world in night's black embrace. The restless dead stir in their ancient tombs, and creatures born of shadow rise to quench their savage hungers. Whispers echo from the crypt, beckoning with the promise of dark desire. And those who heed their call are forever lost in the night.
Your suffering will never